Please, don't hit me. I'm already hurt. 6 words, whispered by a broken little girl to a stranger in a dark alley. 6 words that would shatter one man's world and rebuild it into something beautiful. This is the story of how a single dad walking home from work found more than just a scared child hiding behind a dumpster. He found his daughter, his family's missing piece, and proof that sometimes the universe puts you exactly where you need to be.
Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The October wind was angry that night, the kind that cuts straight through your clothes and reminds you that winter doesn't care if you're ready or not. Daniel Harper pulled his jacket tighter as he turned down the alley behind Franklin Street. His feet were on autopilot. Same route, same shortcut, 3 years running. Then, he stopped. Something wasn't right. Near the dumpster, where the brick wall met the concrete, there was movement. No, not movement. Sound. Soft, broken, barely human. A whimper. Daniel's eyes adjusted to the darkness, and his heart stopped. A child. A tiny girl, couldn't be more than 6 or 7, curled into herself like she was trying to disappear. Her sundress, a sundress in 40 degrees weather, was torn. Her bare feet were black with dirt, her blonde hair matted and wild. But it was the marks that made his stomach turn. Purple, yellow, fresh, old, a timeline of violence painted on skin that should have known nothing but gentle touches.
"Hey there," Daniel said softly, crouching down, keeping his distance. Every instinct screamed to him to scoop her up, to run, to get her somewhere warm and safe. But he knew, somehow he knew, that sudden movements would send her deeper into that corner. The girl's head snapped up. Daniel had to bite back a curse. Her lip was split. Tear tracks had carved clean lines through the dirt on her face. But it was the terror in her one good eye that nearly broke him. Pure, animalistic fear. The kind no child should even know exists. She pressed harder against the wall, raising one trembling hand. "Please," she whispered, her voice so small it barely existed. "Please, don't hit me. I'm already hurt." The words hung in the air like a verdict. Daniel felt his eyes burn. Very slowly, he sat down on the cold concrete, making himself smaller. "I'm not going to hurt you, sweetheart. I promise. My name is Daniel. I'm a dad." The girl watched him with that one good eye, still pressed against the wall, still ready to run or fight or just give up. "What's your name?" Silence stretched between them. Then, barely audible, "Rosie." "That's a beautiful name, Rosie." "Are you cold?" A tiny nod, just the smallest movement. But it was something.
Daniel slowly took off his jacket, telegraphing every movement like he was dealing with a wounded animal. "I'm going to put this on the ground between us, okay? You can take it if you want. It's warm." He placed the jacket halfway between them and scooted back. Time stopped. The wind howled above them, carrying the sounds of the city, cars, music, life going on while this little girl sat broken in an alley. After what felt like forever, Rosie's small hand darted out. She grabbed the jacket and pulled it around her shoulders. It swallowed her whole. "Rosie, where are your parents?" Her whole body started shaking, not from cold, from something deeper. My mama went to heaven 2 years ago. She got real sick in her brain. Then Howard, my stepdad, he said I was bad, said I made too much noise, said I ate too much. He... She couldn't continue. She didn't need to. "Did you run away from Howard?" Rosie nodded. "He was drinking the angry juice again. He broke my arm last month but told the doctor I fell off my bike. I don't even have a bike." Daniel's hands clenched into fists. He forced them to relax. Tonight, he said he was going to teach me a real lesson. So when he went to the bathroom, I ran. I've been hiding here for, I don't know, a long time. I'm so hungry. Every word was a knife. Every word was a crime. Every word was a child asking why the world had failed her.
Rosie, I'm going to call for help, okay? But first, would you like to come to my house? It's warm, and I can make you something to eat. You promise you won't take me back to Howard? I promise on my life that you will never have to see Howard again if I have anything to say about it. Something in his voice must have reached through her fear. Rosie slowly stood up. She swayed on her feet, and Daniel realized with fresh horror how thin she was. Not just thin, malnourished, starved. "Can I carry you? You look tired." She hesitated, then nodded. When Daniel picked her up, she weighed nothing, like holding air, like holding hope that might shatter if he squeezed too tight. She smelled of alley dirt and fear, and she was trembling so hard he was afraid she might break apart in his arms. She buried her face in his shoulder, and Daniel started walking. His phone rang 4 times before Mrs. Brennan answered. The elderly neighbor who watched Noah during his late shifts sounded groggy but immediately alert when she heard his voice. "Daniel, is everything all right?" "Daniel, I need you to listen. I found a little girl. She's hurt. Someone hurt her badly. I'm bringing her home." There was no hesitation. Sweet Mrs. Brennan, who'd raised 5 kids of her own, who'd lost her husband last spring and found her purpose in helping Daniel with Noah during his late shifts, simply said, "Bring that baby home." Daniel felt Rosie tense in his arms. "That's Mrs. Brennan," he explained softly. "She takes care of my son, Noah, when I work late. She's like a grandma. She makes the best cookies in Ohio." "I haven't had a cookie in a long time," Rosie whispered into his shoulder. "Well, that's about to change."
The small 2-bedroom house glowed warm against the cold night. Mrs. Brennan was waiting at the door, and when she saw Rosie, her hand flew to her mouth. But she recovered quickly, all business and gentle efficiency. "Oh, sweet child," she murmured, then turned to Daniel. "Run a warm bath. Not hot. She's too cold for hot. I'll heat up some soup. Just broth at first." While Mrs. Brennan gently bathed Rosie, washing away layers of neglect, Daniel called the police. His hands shook as he dialed. He knew Officer Janet Walsh from Noah's school. She had a daughter in his son's class. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Janet, it's Daniel Harper. I need you to come to my house. I found a child. She's been severely abused. I'm on my way." Then Daniel stood outside the bathroom door, listening to Mrs. Brennan's gentle voice. "That's it, sweetheart. Let's get this dirt off. Oh, look how pretty your hair is when it's clean, like sunshine." A small voice. "Howard says I'm ugly." "Howard is a liar, child. You're beautiful, inside and out." When Rosie emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in one of Noah's superhero blankets, she looked even smaller, but somehow more real, like the dirt had been holding her together, and now she might float away. Mrs. Brennan had found some of Noah's old clothes, sweatpants and a t-shirt with a cartoon dinosaur on it. "Soup's ready," Mrs. Brennan said, leading Rosie to the kitchen table. The girl ate slowly, carefully, like she was afraid someone would snatch the bowl away. Daniel sat across from her, his own hands wrapped around a coffee mug he wasn't drinking.
"Rosie," he said gently, "a police officer is coming, a friend of mine. She needs to see your hurt places and ask you some questions. Is that okay?" Fear flashed across Rosie's face. "Will she take me back to Howard?" "No, never. She's coming to make sure Howard never hurts you or anyone else again." Officer Walsh arrived 20 minutes later. She took one look at Rosie and her professional composure cracked. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm Janet. I heard you've had a really tough night." Rosie nodded, clutching the blanket tighter. "Can I take some pictures of your owies? It's so we can make sure the person who did this gets in big trouble." "Howard did it. Howard Brennan. He lives at 482 Maple Street, apartment 3B. Janet's eyes met Daniel's over Rosie's head. This child had been preparing to tell someone. She'd memorized the address. While Janet documented the injuries, and there were so many,
old ones hidden under new ones. She spoke quietly to Daniel. Howard Brennan? 2 priors for assault? Bar fights? How the hell did he get custody of a child? The system failed her, Daniel said simply. Not anymore, Janet replied. He'll be in custody before dawn.
It was past midnight when a social worker arrived. Angela Foster looked tired, like she'd seen too much and slept too little. But her eyes were kind when she knelt in front of Rosie. Hi, Rosie. I'm Angela. I'm here to make sure you're safe and have somewhere good to stay. Rosie's hand shot out and grabbed Daniel's. I want to stay here. Angela looked at Daniel, then at the death grip Rosie had on his hand. We need to find an emergency placement for tonight. She can stay here, Daniel said immediately. I know there's paperwork, background checks, whatever you need, but it's 2 in the morning and she's been through enough. Please. Are you a licensed foster parent? No, but then I can't. Please. Rosie's voice was so small. Please let me stay. He saved me. He didn't walk past. Everyone else walked past. How do you explain to a social worker that sometimes the universe puts people where they need to be? How do you explain that the moment this child whispered those 6 words, please don't hit me, I'm already hurt, she became his responsibility? Not legally, not officially, but in every way that mattered. Angela studied them for a long moment. Rosie clinging to Daniel, Daniel looking ready to fight the entire system, Mrs. Brennan standing in the doorway like a guardian angel in a housecoat. I can do an emergency placement for 72 hours while we expedite a background check, Angela said finally. But Mr. Harper, if you're serious about this, you need to start the foster parent application immediately. I'll do whatever it takes. A door creaked down the hall. A small figure appeared, rubbing sleepy eyes. Dad? Noah stood there in his Spider-Man pajamas, his dark hair sticking up in 8 different directions. He was 8, all knobby knees and endless questions, and Daniel's heart clenched. How did he explain this? Hey, buddy, come here. Noah patted over, then stopped when he saw Rosie. His eyes went wide. What happened to her face? Someone hurt her, Daniel said simply. But she's safe now. This is Rosie. She's going to stay with us for a while.
Noah studied Rosie with the serious intensity only children can manage. Then he disappeared down the hall. He came back carrying something. This is Mr. Buttons, he said, offering Rosie his favorite teddy bear, the one Grace had given him before she died, the one he slept with every night. He helps with bad dreams. He's really good at it. Rosie looked at the bear, then at Noah, then carefully took it. Thank you, she whispered. You can sleep in my room if you want. I have a nightlight that looks like the moon. That first night, Daniel barely slept. He sat in the hallway between the kids' rooms, listening. Every time Rosie whimpered in her sleep, he was ready to go to her. But then he'd hear Noah's voice, soft and reassuring. It's okay. You're safe now. Mr. Buttons is here. By morning, he'd made 17 phone calls. Foster parent application, emergency custody paperwork, a lawyer friend who owed him a favor, his boss at the warehouse explaining he'd need the day off, his other boss at the construction site, same explanation. Family emergency, he'd said both times, because that's what Rosie was now. Family. Mrs. Brennan arrived at 7 with groceries. That child needs feeding up, she declared, and you need to fill out paperwork. I'll watch him. Daniel looked at this woman who'd become his lifeline since Grace died. Mrs. Brennan, I can't ask you to... You're not asking? I'm telling. That little girl needs a family, and you need a daughter. Sometimes life is that simple. Was it, though? Daniel thought about his bank account, already stretched thin. 2 jobs, barely covering expenses. Noah's soccer league fees, the camping trip he'd been saving for that would now go toward legal fees.
Then he heard Rosie laugh, actually laugh at something Noah said, and knew Mrs. Brennan was right. Sometimes life was exactly that simple. The next days blurred together. Howard was arrested at a bar at 3 a.m., drunk and belligerent. When they told him why he was being arrested, he'd actually said, "That brat ran off? Good riddance." The officers added that to their report.
Rosie had a medical exam that revealed old fractures, healing in ways that suggested they'd never been properly treated, malnutrition, signs of prolonged physical abuse. The doctor, a gentle woman named Dr. Martinez, had tears in her eyes when she handed Daniel the report. "How long?" Daniel asked. "Based on the healing patterns, at least a year, possibly since her mother died." 2 years. 2 years of hell for a child who should have been learning to read, losing teeth, believing in magic. Child Protective Services fast-tracked Daniel's application. His background check came back clean. His references, Mrs. Brennan, his bosses, Noah's teacher, all sang his praises. The home inspection found a small but clean house, a concerned neighbor, a loving environment. But there were still hurdles, interviews, classes, more paperwork than Daniel had seen in his life. "Why do you want to foster Rosie specifically?" Angela asked during one interview. Daniel thought about Grace, about how she'd always wanted a daughter, about Noah asking for a sibling, about the way Rosie had grabbed his hand and hadn't let go. "Because she's already mine," he said simply. "I know that sounds crazy. I've known her for a week. But the moment she looked at me with those scared eyes, the moment she whispered those words, she became my responsibility. My daughter."
You have a biological son. How do you think this will affect him? You'd have to ask him. They did. Noah, in his 8-year-old wisdom, said, "Rosie needs us, and we need her. Dad smiles more now. Real smiles. Not the fake ones he does when he thinks I'm watching. And I always wanted a sister. Plus, she laughs at my jokes, and she's teaching me to braid hair on Mr. Buttons." 3 weeks in, Rosie had her first nightmare while Daniel was home. Screaming, thrashing, calling for her mama. Daniel ran to Noah's room to find his son already there, holding her hand, whispering, "It's okay, Rosie. Howard's in jail. Dad made sure. You're safe." Daniel knelt beside the bed. Rosie's eyes were wild, unfocused. "Rosie, sweetheart, you're safe. You're in Noah's room. See, there's the moon night light. There's Mr. Buttons. You're safe." She blinked, focusing on his face. Then she launched herself into his arms, sobbing. I dreamed he found me. I dreamed he was angry." "He can't hurt you anymore, ever." "Promise?" "I promise." She pulled back, studying his face with those 2 old eyes. "My mama used to make promises. Then she got sick and couldn't keep them." Daniel's throat tightened. Grace had made promises too, about being there for Noah's first day of school, about teaching him to ride a bike, about growing old together. "I know sometimes promises get broken, even when people don't mean to break them," he said carefully. "But I promise I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. And if something happens to me, Mrs. Brennan will keep you safe. And Noah will, and Officer Janet, and Angela. You have so many people now, Rosie. You're not alone anymore." The foster care classes were held on Tuesday nights. Daniel would rush from his warehouse job, grab fast food, and sit in a community center with other prospective foster parents. He learned about trauma responses, attachment disorders, the legal system. He took notes like his life depended on it.
Because Rosie's did. One night the instructor talked about reunification, the goal of returning children to their biological families. "What if the biological family is the danger?" Daniel asked. "Then we look for other biological relatives, grandparents, aunts, uncles. And if there are none, then we look at adoption." Daniel felt something loosen in his chest. Adoption. The word sounded like home. 6 weeks after that night in the alley, Rosie spoke in full sentences without flinching. She ate without checking to make sure it was okay. She played with Noah without constantly watching the door. Small victories that felt like miracles. "Dad," Noah said one night at dinner, "when is Rosie going to be my real sister?" Rosie went very still. "She's already your real sister," Daniel said carefully, "but if you mean legally, officially, we're working on it." "I want to be a Harper," Rosie said quietly. It was the first time she'd expressed any preference about her future. Rosie Harper sounds nice.
Yeah, Noah agreed. Then we can tell everyone at school. Right now I just say she's my sister, and they say she's not, and I say yes she is, and they say you don't look alike, and I say so what, and... Noah, Daniel interrupted, laughing. Breathe. But he caught Rosie's eye and nodded. Rosie Harper did sound nice. Comment below if you've ever witnessed a moment where kindness changed someone's life. These connections matter more than we realize. The legal process was a maze. Howard pled guilty. Seemed even he couldn't face what he'd done when forced to confront it sober and in a courtroom. 12 years. It should have been more, but it was enough to ensure Rosie would be an adult before he got out. The termination of parental rights was straightforward. Howard had no interest in fighting for a child he'd never wanted. But the adoption process was something else entirely. More paperwork, more interviews, more waiting. Rosie started therapy twice a week with a child psychologist named Dr. Kim. Daniel would sit in the waiting room pretending to read magazines while actually straining to hear anything from behind the closed door. Sometimes he heard crying, sometimes laughter, sometimes silence. She's remarkably resilient, Dr. Kim told him after a month, but she's going to need consistency, stability, love without conditions. I have that. I know. I can see it in how she talks about you and Noah, but Daniel, this is going to be a long road. There will be setbacks, bad days, moments where the trauma resurfaces. I'm not going anywhere. Dr. Kim smiled. I know that too. Christmas came 4 months after the alley. Their first Christmas as a family of 3, or 4, counting Mrs. Brennan, who'd become the grandmother neither child had anymore. Daniel had saved every penny he could. The tree was small, from the discount lot. The presents were practical, clothes, school supplies, a few toys from the thrift store, but watching Rosie's face light up at each gift was worth more than anything money could buy. I haven't had Christmas since Mama died, Rosie whispered, holding a second-hand doll like it was made of gold. Howard said I was bad, so Santa didn't come. Noah, who'd been wavering on the Santa question, immediately declared, well, Santa definitely knows you're good now. He told me.
The best present came 2 days after Christmas. Angela called with news. The adoption could move forward. Court date set for March. Rosie cried. Noah whooped. Mrs. Brennan baked a cake. Daniel just held his children, both of them his children, and felt Grace's presence so strongly it took his breath away. January brought snow and setbacks. Rosie had been doing well in school, catching up on 2 years of missed education, with a determination that amazed her teachers. But then, a classmate's father came to pick up his son, a large man with a booming voice, and Rosie hid under her desk, shaking. The school called Daniel at work. He left immediately, his boss's irritation following him out the door. He found Rosie in the nurse's office, curled into herself, that same terrified look from the alley back in her eyes. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly. "It's Dad. You're safe." She blinked, focusing. Dad? It was the first time she'd called him that. Daniel's eyes burned. "Yeah, baby. I'm here." She threw herself into his arms. He looked like Howard. He sounded like Howard. But it wasn't Howard. Howard's in jail. Remember? We went to the courthouse. We saw the judge say he couldn't hurt anyone anymore. She nodded against his chest. "Can we go home?" Of course. That night, Noah gave Rosie his second favorite stuffed animal, a dragon named Fred, for school, in case Mr. Buttons needs backup. February meant class parties and adoption preparation. The social worker did final home visits. The guardian ad litem, a court-appointed advocate for Rosie, interviewed everyone, including Mrs. Brennan. Why should Daniel Harper be allowed to adopt Rosie? The advocate asked. Mrs. Brennan fixed her with a steely look because that man saved that child's life, and she saved his right back. You ever seen a family that was meant to be? That's them. That boy Noah shares everything with his sister. Daniel works 2 jobs and never complains because those kids are fed and clothed and loved. And that little girl? She smiles now, real smiles. She laughs, she plays, she's becoming who she was always supposed to be before someone tried to break her.
You'd be a fool to keep them apart. The guardian ad litem recommended the adoption for Seed. March arrived with unusual warmth. The adoption was set for March 15th. Mrs. Brennan spent a week sewing Rosie a yellow dress, her favorite color. Noah insisted on wearing a tie, even though it was too big and kept sliding sideways. Daniel couldn't sleep the night before. He stood in the doorway of Noah's room, watching his children sleep. Rosie had her own bed now, but most nights she still ended up in Noah's, the two of them tangled together like puppies, Mr. Buttons and Fred standing guard. He thought about Grace, about how she would have loved Rosie, about how she would have known exactly what to say to calm the girl's fears, to make her laugh, to braid her hair in fancy ways Daniel's clumsy fingers couldn't manage. I hope I'm doing right by you, Grace. I hope I'm enough for them. The wind outside seemed to whisper back, "You are." The courthouse was intimidating, all marble and echoes. Rosie held Daniel's hand so tight he lost feeling in his fingers. Noah bounced beside them, excited and nervous in equal measure. The courtroom was smaller than Daniel expected. The judge, an older woman with kind eyes, smiled at them. "Are you Rosie?" she asked. Rosie nodded. "I need to ask you some questions, sweetheart. Is that okay?" Another nod. "Do you want Daniel Harper to be your father?" Rosie's voice was clear and strong. "He already is. He saved me. He stopped when everyone else walked past. He gave me his jacket when I was cold, and he promised I'd never have to see Howard again, and he kept that promise. He's my dad." Daniel was crying. He couldn't help it. "And Noah Harper to be your brother." "Noah shared Mr. Buttons with me on the first night. He teaches me jokes. He lets me pick the movie on Fridays even though it's supposed to be his turn. He tells kids at school I'm his sister even when they say I'm not. He's the best brother." Noah puffed up with pride.
Daniel Harper, the judge said, do you wish to adopt Rosie and give her your name, your protection, and your love for the rest of her life? More than anything in the world. Noah Harper, do you understand that Rosie will be your sister forever? Yes, can we make it official now? We have a party to get to. Mrs. Brennan made 3 kinds of cake. The courtroom laughed. Even the judge smiled. Then, by the power vested in me by the state of Ohio, I hereby grant the adoption of Rosie Marie Harper. Congratulations to the Harper family. The courtroom erupted in applause. Daniel was sobbing now, not even trying to hide it. Noah was whooping and jumping. Mrs. Brennan was dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. And Rosie, brave, beautiful, unbreakable Rosie, was smiling with her whole face for the first time since he'd known her. Share this story if you believe in the power of choosing love over fear, family over blood, and hope over despair. The party was in their backyard. Nothing fancy. Balloons from the dollar store, streamers Noah and Rosie had made, the promised 3 kinds of cake. Daniel's work friends came. Noah's teacher, Officer Janet, off-duty and bearing gifts. Angela the social worker, looking less tired and more hopeful. Dr. Kim, even the nurse from Rosie's school. "Speech," someone called out. Daniel stood, Rosie on one side, Noah on the other. I'm not good at speeches, but I want to say, family isn't always what you expect. 3 months ago, I was just a single dad trying to make ends meet, trying to be enough for Noah. Then I found Rosie in that alley, and she found us right back. She's taught us that strength isn't about being tough. It's about being brave enough to trust after being hurt. It's about choosing love even when you're scared. Rosie, you didn't just join our family, you completed it.
Later, as the party wound down, Rosie pulled Daniel aside. She was holding a card she'd made in art therapy, covered in drawings of their little family, stick figures holding hands, Mrs. Brennan with her signature bun, even Mr. Buttons and Fred. "Thank you," she said simply, "for stopping that night, for seeing me, for not walking past." Daniel knelt down to her level. "Rosie, you saved us too. Noah and I, we were getting by, but we were just existing. You brought light back into our house. You reminded us that love isn't divided when you add more people, it multiplies." "Really?" "Really." And you know what? I think your mom and Noah's mom are up there together, watching over us, making sure we found each other. You think my mama is happy? I think she's so proud of how brave you've been. And I think she's grateful you're safe and loved. Rosie hugged him then, not the desperate clutch from that first night, but the confident embrace of a daughter who knows she's loved, protected, and home. 2 years have passed since that night in the alley. The Harper house is louder now, fuller. There are drawings on the refrigerator. Rosie's getting quite good at art. Soccer trophies on the shelf. She and Noah are on the same team and they're fierce together. Photos everywhere, Christmas mornings, birthdays, random Tuesday afternoons when the light was just right and everyone was laughing. Daniel still works 2 jobs. Money is still tight. The camping trip they finally took last summer was to a state park 20 miles away, not the grand adventure he had once imagined. But watching Rosie see her first shooting star, hearing Noah teach her to fish, making s'mores around a tiny campfire, it was perfect. Rosie still has bad days. Loud noises can trigger her. She hoards food sometimes, hiding crackers in her room just in case. She has nightmares, though less frequently. But she also laughs freely now. She raises her hand in class. She has friends. She believes in her future. She wants to be a social worker when she grows up, to help kids like me, to make sure no one has to hide in an alley. Noah, now 10, has become the kind of big brother who walks his sister to class, who threatens to fight anyone who makes her sad, who still shares Mr. Buttons when the nightmares come. He doesn't remember much about life before Rosie anymore. She's always been his sister, as far as he's concerned.
Mrs. Brennan is still next door, still watching them after school, still making cookies and dispensing wisdom. She's teaching Rosie to sew, Noah to cook. She's the grandmother they chose, and she wears the title like a crown. Daniel thinks about that night often, how he almost didn't take the alley. He was tired, his feet hurt, and the main road was well lit, safer. But something, call it instinct, call it Grace's guiding hand, call it the universe, made him turn down that dark path. 6 words changed everything. Please don't hit me, I'm already hurt. But really, it was his response that mattered. He could have called 911 and walked away, could have let the system handle it, could have decided his plate was already too full, his life too complicated, his resources too limited. Instead, he sat down on cold concrete and offered his jacket to a broken bird of a child. He chose love over fear, compassion over convenience, family over simplicity. The adoption certificate hangs in the hallway, right next to Grace's picture. Sometimes Daniel finds Rosie looking at both, tracing the letters of her new name with one finger. "Do you think she would have liked me?" Rosie asked once, about Grace. "She would have loved you," Daniel said with complete certainty. "She always wanted a daughter. She would have braided your hair and taught you to paint. She was good at painting. She would have been so proud of how brave you are." "I'm not brave," Rosie said. "I was scared all the time." Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you keep going even when you are. And you, Rosie Harper, are the bravest person I know. Last week, Daniel was walking home from work, just the one job now, after a promotion at the warehouse. And he passed the alley. He always passes the alley. Sometimes he stops, remembers, says a prayer of gratitude to whatever force led him there that night. This time, there was a young woman standing at the entrance, crying. Not hurt, just overwhelmed, lost, having one of those days where the world feels too heavy. "You okay?" Daniel asked. She looked up, startled. I'm fine, sorry." "Sure? Sometimes talking helps." So she talked about losing her job, her apartment, her sense of direction. Daniel listened, then gave her the number for the community center, the one that ran the foster classes. They had resources, support groups, people who could help. "Why do you care?" she asked. "You don't even know me." Daniel thought about Rosie, about 6 words that changed everything.
"Because someone has to," he said simply. "Because walking past when someone needs help isn't really walking at all. It's running away from who we're supposed to be." He left her with resources and hope. Maybe it would help, maybe it wouldn't. But he'd stopped. He'd seen her. He'd cared. That's what Rosie taught him. That's what Grace would have wanted. That's what makes a family. Not blood, not perfection, not having all the answers. Just showing up, staying present, choosing love even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Tonight, like every night, Daniel will tuck his children in, Noah first, even though he insists he's too old for tucking in, then Rosie, who still needs to check that the window is locked, the closet is empty, the night light is on. "Dad," she'll say, like she does every night. "Yes, sweetheart? I love you." "I love you too, Rosie Harper." And she'll smile at her name, her real name, the name that means she belongs, she's wanted, she's home. Tomorrow, there will be challenges, homework battles, and sibling squabbles, and bills to pay. There will be therapy appointments and soccer practices, and Mrs. Brennan's stories about her wild youth that may or may not be entirely true. But tonight, in a small house in Riverside, Ohio, 3 hearts beat in rhythm. A father who learned that love multiplies. A son who learned that sharing makes you richer. A daughter who learned that not all hands hit, not all men hurt, and sometimes, when you whisper for help into the darkness, someone stops to listen. Someone stays. Someone makes you whole again. Daniel Harper was just walking home from work on a cold October night. He found his daughter hiding behind a dumpster, broken and afraid. But really, they found each other. 3 souls who needed to be a family, brought together by 6 words, held together by something stronger than blood. Love. Choice. The decision to stop walking past and start walking toward. That's what makes a family. That's what saves us all. If this story touched your heart, remember that there are children like Rosie everywhere, waiting for someone to stop, to see them, to choose love over convenience. Consider becoming a foster parent, supporting local child welfare organizations, or simply being the person who doesn't walk past when someone needs help. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change 3 lives forever. The one you save, your own, and everyone they'll go on to touch with the love you showed them. In a world that often feels dark, be someone's Daniel. Be the light that guides them home.